I'm Corbett Wall with DVAuction, here with your cattle market summary for the week ending December the 13th. We had a lighter run of calves this week after that big run we had last week right after the Thanksgiving holiday, and just not as many cattle moving. Some of your big sales up north took the week off after that big week last week, and your high volume sales down in the plains and the Midwest just having one sale for the most part and not having quite as big a numbers as they had last week. But your CME cattle futures were down sharply this week, starting out on Monday, and your feeder board was actually down the limit 3 days this week, and really caused these big orders for feeder cattle to pull back, kind of wait and see how far this thing's going to back up before they bought any more cattle, and pull those orders back quite a bit. Plus, they're plumb full of new purchases that they've either took shipping of out of the country or bought out of the sales the last week or so, and it didn't hurt them to kind of back off from buying this week. But your fat cattle market last week went down hard again this week. It's just evident that we've seen the highs on the fat cattle for probably quite a while, at least probably till the middle part of next year if this thing kind of holds together. But when your fat cattle market dwindles, everything else is just a derivative of that, and we know that this fat cattle market's going to back up quite a bit. We want to kind of see how far it's going to back up and find a bottom to it, at least for partial bottom for a while, before we do much else. Grains were higher this week. That was unexpected. Did have a supply and demand report this week. Came in just about what everybody thought it would be. They think maybe they're raising the market just a little bit to get some of this out of storage, maybe off the farm, to get the farmers to sell it. Not sure where they think it's going to go, but we're done with harvest. Still a few guys poking around out there, but for the most part we're all done. We know how much we're going to have, and it was a bumper crop. But feeder calves, mostly a few yearlings left, mostly backgrounded yearlings coming out of some kind of a yard. But your feeders weighing over 600 pounds are $3 to $10 lower this week. Sure, 5 to 10 lower by the end of the week, as it got progressively worse as we went along. But your calves, your light calves, still selling at all-time record highs and still posting new record highs in some places. Your lightweight calves weighing under 600 pounds were fully steady to as much as $6 lower, and that's across the nation, even in the southeast. Those calves for order coming in to the Texas Panhandle, western Oklahoma areas, places like that. Some of those spots in different states were still up to $6 higher. So there's a lot of confidence in the calf markets right now. They just believe that they've still got time to cheapen these cattle up. They got a lot of cheap feed. They got places to turn them out. There's a lot of wheat there. A lot of your backgrounders and cattle growers still think we're going to set new all-time record highs on stocker cattle next spring. We get in here into March and April, maybe a 550 to 700 pound real hard short yearling that hasn't been backgrounded too hard. They think it might bring more than it's ever brought before, and there's a good chance for that. We're seeing a lot of unprecedents in the feeder market we have all year, but the biggest one we're seeing right now and unprecedented is these huge price ranges on all your feeder cattle. And it's not uncommon in the same sale to see some steers pushing 1,000 pounds to sell with under $2 with a 1 as a front number, and then at the same time you've got some lightweight calves selling around 400 pounds or lighter, selling with a 4 as a front number, and that is just absolutely unprecedented. We've got huge price ranges between steers and heifers, $35, maybe $40, depending on the flesh condition, because nothing gets hammered harder than a real fleshy heifer weighing around 6. But these huge price ranges, but we've yet to see the full effects of these light numbers. So that's why these guys that are buying these light calves have so much confidence in it. The industry's already sick of these giant 1,700 pound fat cattle. We're already seeing signs that they're starting to back away from them a little bit. We've been raising those because the packers backed off of their penalties for making those big heavy carcasses, kind of getting the industry through this light tonnage that we've been in right now and still going to be in for a while. But we've still got unprecedented light numbers for the modern days. The lightest calf crop we've had in over 60 years. We haven't seen the full effect of that yet. It's probably going to get worse. We don't know exactly how many of these heifers that these ranchers are going to retain. It's going to be fewer cattle around. We probably still could see some record prices sometime early next year. Now we get into 2016, you might want to hold on to your hat, because it'll definitely go down faster than it went up, and we sure want everybody to be protected on the bottom side. But when you look at the light numbers we've got, it all started with these big droughts, and we go in these cyclical cycles here where we go so many years and we get our numbers down and then they go back up. Well, the droughts are the thing that made that go off track. And it started out, and it went through all of our major production areas. Started out there in Texas, and then in the southeast was hammered by drought, worse than it's ever seen. And then into the plains and the Midwest, and then the mountain states too. All there about 3 years ago, just terrible. So all of our herds are culled down to nothing. And every place has kind of had at least 1 year of whatever we call normal moisture where they can survive, and they've started trying to rebuild a little bit, except for the West. And don't forget about the West out there. California and those surrounding states out there, they have been and can still be major beef cattle producers. And they may not jump right back into the cow-calf deal right now, but there's a vast area out there in the West that's good for turning cattle out. If we get a big demand for some cheap grazing out there in California, Nevada, Utah, places like that, on the edge of those mountains, then these stocker cattle could really, really jump through themselves by the time we get into March and April. So, and and it may not be your calf, but it's other calves like yours. And it's going to make a difference. And I think that's why you're seeing so much confidence in buying these lightweight calves. But you look at the West, we've got flooding in California. You may not like these 10-inch rains if you built your house right on a cliff or right under one out there on the coastline of California. But you get inland a couple of 100 miles and you get into some of that ag country in there, and you got to be loving it. They're getting snowpack in the mountains. That's going to be good for irrigation coming down the line. And finally, they're getting some moisture of some kind out west there. This week, your fat cattle market $4 to $6 lower, from 162 to 164. We're now 10 bucks off that record we had about a month ago. $7 lower dressed at 257. Slaughter cows and bulls mostly steady after gaining some ground last week, getting ready for the shutdown during the Christmas and New Year's. But big runs of cows and bulls last week helped those guys out. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to buy replacement cattle between now and the end of the year to help these guys get rid of some of that extra money they made this year they wasn't used to and don't have to pay taxes on it. Still, your top quality bred heifers with some size to them, and your younger bred cows selling either side of $3,000 per head on a commercial basis. Now, if you want to go premium, tune into DVAuction. Going to be several of these female sales. Griswold Cattle Classic coming up Saturday the 20th from Stillwater, Oklahoma, selling over 400 head of premium quality. And if you want to step up to that kind of class, then you need to tune in and watch some of these sales. That wraps up your cattle market summary for this week. Check out our website at DVAuction or the stockexchangenews.com for this report. And from a home office here in Maysville, Missouri, we'll talk to you next week.